Hassan and the Magical Paper. A Journey to a World Without an Alphabet. Abdul Salim. Deep in the dusty corners of his grandfather's attic, Hassan found a scrap of parchment that stood out from the rest. It wasn't yellowed or brittle. Instead, it pulsed with a warm, golden light. In the center of the page was a beautifully inked title, The Alphabet. Hassan ran his finger over the letters A, B, and C, which felt like embossed velvet. "It's just a collection of lines," he whispered. "I wonder what the world would be like if we didn't have to bother with letters and reading at all." As the words left his lips, the golden light flared, swirling around Hassan like a ribbon of sunbeams. The floor beneath him seemed to melt into a river of ink. He felt himself floating through a tunnel of flowing scripts and ancient scrolls. The parchment in his hand hummed a deep, rhythmic vibration, and suddenly, the familiar attic vanished. Hassan landed softly on a path made of packed red clay, surrounded by buildings he had only seen in history books. Hassan looked around a bustling city square. It was magnificent, built of tall mud brick walls and decorated with hanging gardens. However, as he looked for a street sign or a map, he found nothing but blank stone. There were no names on the shops and no directions on the corners. People were moving about, but there was a strange, heavy silence to the way they navigated the city. Hassan felt a pang of confusion. How did anyone know where they were going? Hassan wandered toward a marketplace where a man was trying to sell different types of grain. Instead of a sign saying wheat or barley, the man had carved a detailed picture of a single stalk of grain into a heavy slab of rock. Hassan watched as a customer pointed at the rock and then at their coins. "Can't you just write the price?" Hassan asked. The merchant looked at him with a puzzled expression, as if the word "right" was a sound from a different planet. Further down the street, Hassan saw a woman named Lala standing before a massive, smooth wall. She held a palette of natural pigments and was meticulously painting a giant, soaring bird. "Is that a decoration?" Hassan asked. Lala smiled and shook her head. "No, young traveler. This is our history. This bird represents the great peace of the last decade. Since we have no letters to record the treaty, I must paint the story so our children do not forget." Lala dipped her brush into a deep blue dye. "Every story we have is a picture. If I want to say light, I draw the sun. If I want to say freedom, I draw the bird. But it takes a long time to paint a single day, and sometimes people see different things in the same drawing." She looked at her wall with a sigh. "I spend my whole life painting what could be told in a few breaths if only we had a way to trap our voices on the stone." Leaving the artist, Hassan found a grand building where a man named Nabu sat surrounded by hundreds of heavy clay tablets. Nabu was a scribe, and he looked exhausted. He was pressing a wedge-shaped stick into wet clay, creating incredibly complex symbols. "Are those letters?" Hassan asked hopefully. Nabu groaned. "These are symbols for every object in the kingdom. There are thousands of them. I have spent 40 years learning them all, and I still forget the symbol for a mountain sometimes." Nabu picked up a finished tablet. It was as thick as a brick and very heavy. "This is just one page of a royal decree," he explained, wiping sweat from his brow. "To share knowledge with a city far away, we must send a caravan of donkeys just to carry the books. It is so difficult to teach others. Only a few of us have the time to learn these thousands of pictures. Education is a treasure locked behind a very heavy door." Suddenly, music began to play in the square. Hassan watched as a group of people began a complex dance. Nabu explained that since they couldn't write down their songs or poems, they had to memorize them through movement and rhythm. "If the dancers forget the steps," Nabu whispered, "the poem is lost forever. Our hearts are the only libraries we have, and hearts can be fragile." Hassan realized that without an alphabet, knowledge was always at risk of vanishing. Hassan walked toward the riverbank, where he saw a young apprentice named Fawn sitting in the sand. Fawn wasn't drawing birds or grain. Instead, she was staring at an ox pulling a cart and then looking at the sand. "Everyone is so busy drawing the whole world," Fawn said to Hassan. "But I've noticed that when we speak, we only use a few different sounds. What if we had a shape for the sound, instead of the object?" Fawn pointed to her drawing. The word for ox starts with an ah sound. I will draw a simple head of an ox. She drew a shape that looked like a sideways. Now, whenever someone sees this, they don't have to think of the animal, they just make the sound. We can combine these sounds to build any word we want. We only need about 20 or 30 shapes to say everything in the world. Her eyes shone with the excitement of a grand discovery. Hassan picked up a stick and joined her. Together, they began to turn the complex pictures of the city into simple lines. A house became a square. A door became a vertical line. With this, Hassan realized, anyone can learn to read in weeks, not years. Naba won't have to carry heavy stones, and Lala can write her poems in a small book that fits in her pocket. They were creating a bridge that would connect every mind in the world. Fawn looked at the horizon. Knowledge shouldn't be a heavy stone that only the strong can carry. It should be like the wind, light enough to travel everywhere and reach everyone. As she spoke, the simple letters in the sand began to glow with the same golden light as Hassan's parchment. The world of heavy clay and complex paintings began to shimmer and fade, replaced by the humming sound of 1,000 voices reading together. The golden light returned to Hassan's hand, pulling him back through the tunnel of ink. He saw the evolution of the letters, from the sand drawings to the Phoenician script to the Greek and Latin alphabets, all the way to the letters he used today. He realized that every book he had ever read was a gift from people like Fawn, who wanted to make sure that thoughts could live forever on a page. Hassan blinked and found himself back in the attic. The golden paper was now a regular white sheet, but he didn't care. He ran downstairs to his room, grabbed a pen, and wrote his own name in large, clear letters, Hassan. He looked at his bookshelf with a new sense of wonder. Each book was no longer just a bunch of pages. It was a conversation with history, made possible by 26 simple, magical shapes. I'll never take a single letter for granted again, he said, opening his favorite book to page 1.